It started with something small, as it always does in Oak Ridge Valley Estates. It was just a simple dispute about trash cans being left out overnight. The Harrison family had hosted a birthday party for their daughter. In the chaos of the cleanup, they simply forgot to pull their trash bins back behind the wooden fence before midnight. By morning, Pamela Jenkins was already on the warpath. She stormed across the quiet cul-de-sac. Wearing her visor and oversized sunglasses, she snapped pictures of the bins with her phone. She looked like she was gathering hard evidence for a federal trial. Violation. Violation. She muttered under her breath. She scribbled furiously on a yellow notepad. The Harrison kids watched from their living room window. They were confused and scared as Pamela crouched down to aggressively inspect their recycling labels. By noon, she had posted a public notice on the HOA bulletin board. It declared that the Harrison family was habitually non-compliant and threatened them with escalating fines. But this time, the family had had enough. Mr. Harrison ripped the notice off his front door and crumpled it up right in front of her. "We're done with your harassment, Pamela," he shouted angrily. "We're calling the HOA board ourselves to report you." Pamela gasped dramatically, acting as though he had just struck her physically. Her face flushed a bright, furious red. She screamed back that she was the board and that anyone who defied her was a danger to the community. Neighbors began stepping outside of their homes, curious, with their phones already in hand. It was the middle of the afternoon, and the tension was climbing fast. Pamela sensed that she was quickly losing control. She marched back into her house and reappeared minutes later with a small canister clutched tightly in her fist. At first, nobody understood what she was holding, but the closer she got, the clearer it quickly became. It was pepper spray. She waved it around like a badge of absolute authority, yelling at the top of her lungs, "If the HOA rules won't be respected, I will personally enforce them myself." The whole crowd erupted. People shouted at her to put the weapon down while others backed away, genuinely terrified. Kids were crying, dogs were barking, and voices were rising in panic. That's exactly when someone finally called the police. Within minutes, the distant wail of sirens cut through the neighborhood chaos. 2 patrol cars screeched to a halt right in front of Pamela's house. Officers stepped out, looking calm but firm, approaching with open hands. "Ma'am, please put the spray down. Let's just talk this through," one officer said gently. But Pamela was completely past the point of talking. She shook her head violently, gripping the small canister even tighter. "They don't respect order. They're trashing the neighborhood. And now you're actually siding with them." She screamed, slowly backing up into the middle of the street. The Harrison family clung tightly to each other. Neighbors huddled on their lawns, torn between absolute fear and morbid fascination. Phones were pointed from every direction, recording every single second. The officers tried again, keeping their voices steady and calm. "Pamela, no one here is a threat to you. Put the spray down now. We really don't want anyone getting hurt." But Pamela wasn't listening to reason anymore. She was completely spiraling out of her mind and out of control. She started ranting about crazy conspiracies and how everyone was plotting against her. She even yelled that local law enforcement should answer directly to the HOA. And then, the absolute unthinkable finally happened. In one frantic, completely unhinged motion, Pamela raised the canister. She unleashed a thick burst of pepper spray directly at the police officers. A sharp hiss cut the air as an orange mist sprayed across their faces. The entire crowd screamed in pure horror. The officers staggered backward, clutching their burning eyes and coughing violently. Absolute chaos exploded in the street. Kids shrieked in terror as the dogs howled loudly. Neighbors immediately ran in every direction to escape the chemical cloud. Some screamed at Pamela, while others yelled for the blinded cops. The Harrison family quickly pulled their children inside and slammed the door. Pamela, however, stood triumphantly in the middle of the street. Her chest was heaving as she held the canister high in the air, acting like she had just won a massive war. "This is my neighborhood," she shrieked wildly. "I am the ultimate authority here." The blinded officers scrambled blindly for backup, their radios crackling with urgent, desperate calls. Within minutes, more police cars roared into Oak Ridge Valley Estates. Lights were flashing brightly, and sirens were blaring loudly. Officers poured out of the vehicles, this time dressed in full tactical gear, shouting strict commands. The peaceful cul-de-sac now looked like a war zone. Neighbors filmed safely from behind their thick hedges, narrating the unbelievable scene. Others shouted for the remaining kids to get inside quickly. But Pamela stubbornly refused to back down or surrender her weapon. She sprayed the canister again, wildly sweeping it this time. The toxic mist caught a nearby neighbor who instantly collapsed on their front lawn, choking and screaming in agony. "She's insane," someone yelled out loud. Another desperate voice cried, "Get her out of here before she actually kills someone." The tactical officers advanced cautiously with their riot shields up, forming a solid protective barrier against the crazy woman. Pamela screamed like a cornered wild animal. She kept ranting about dictatorship and illegal neighborhood oppression. She tried to spray them again, but the canister merely sputtered, finally running completely empty. She shook it desperately, her eyes wide with manic, unbelievable rage. But no more mist came out. The crowd erupted in loud shouting as two officers seized the perfect moment, rushing forward to take her down quickly. Pamela shrieked and thrashed violently. She clawed at the officers with her sharp nails and kicked wildly as they wrestled her down to the ground. Cell phone cameras zoomed in closely, capturing every single second. She was pinned face down on the rough asphalt, screaming vile obscenities and vowing massive lawsuits. She shouted that she owned the entire street and that absolutely no one had the legal right to stop her authority. The piercing sound of her voice echoed all the way down the block, even as they tightly cuffed her wrists and hauled her back to her feet. Her robe was torn, her hair was completely wild, and her face was twisted in rage. She spat nasty insults at all the neighbors who dared to watch her downfall. Paramedics rushed in to quickly treat the sprayed police officers and the unlucky neighbor, who had caught the stray chemical mist in the face. Kids were still sobbing softly, clinging tightly to their shocked parents. The evening air smelled faintly of harsh chemicals, stinging everyone's throats. The once quiet, perfect cul-de-sac was now an active crime scene. Yellow police tape was stretched across multiple driveways, and flashing red and blue lights painted the front of every single house. Pamela was shoved forcefully into the back of a police cruiser, still screaming loudly. Her angry voice was finally muffled by the closed door, but her dark shadow could be seen thrashing violently inside the car. The neighborhood was totally silent, except for the hum of police radios and the sobs of children. When the police finally cleared out and the flashing lights disappeared into the distance, Oak Ridge Valley Estates was left in stunned silence. Neighbors stood together in small clusters, whispering in absolute disbelief. The Harrison family looked out from their living room window, visibly shaken but incredibly relieved. But absolutely nobody could shake the terrifying image of Pamela, wild-eyed and screaming about absolute neighborhood power. She had actually pepper-sprayed the very people who were sent to restore order. The quiet cul-de-sac would never forget the pure madness of that night. And deep down, everyone knew that Pamela's reign of terror was over.